Let's bring in now Guy Benson, co-host of Benson and Harf, and J-Mo Green, former candidate for DNC chair. Both are Fox News contributors. All right, let's talk about this GOP compromise bill. It is merit-based visas and path to citizenship for Dreamers. That's part of it. Visas available to DACA-eligible immigrants. It also keeps families together at the border while parents go through the criminal proceedings. And you just got off the phone with somebody in Washington who has a little bit of an insight as to how this may go down tomorrow.
Yeah, so I spoke to a top House source about leadership's thinking on this. I would just stipulate that if I were a member of the House of Representatives, I would vote for the compromise bill. I think it's a sensible, good bill.
Okay.
However, leadership is looking at both of those votes tomorrow and are not confident that either one is going to pass. So if, in fact, as they suspect, both fail tomorrow, then the question becomes what happens next. And I think that there's an eye toward maybe looking at what the Senate's doing, which is a so-called clean or standalone bill dealing discreetly with the issue of family separations at the border. But that won't come to the floor or even up for a serious debate or vote prior to the other ones, because they've made those promises to members. The Goodlatte bill and the compromise bill will come first. They're whipping votes, especially on the compromise bill, but not sounding too sanguine about getting to 218.
Okay, so if they don't get to 218, this whole thing just becomes a bigger mess. We have an executive order that could potentially be signed, though, within the hour by the president, which would end the separation of families and children, although that's not going to take effect right away. So then what is the solution? Is the Senate the one to have to pick up the dirty work after perhaps this does not get voted through, if leadership is telling some of your sources that it may not go?
Well, the Senate might be the option. I think what is clear to Democrats in the House is that neither of these bills actually fix the problem. And they're also trying to, kind of like mothers sneak in vegetables into different meals, they're trying to sneak in some really distasteful things that Democrats are not going to be up for. But what we're seeing here, Julie, is that Republicans are desperate to fix this issue. Donald Trump created a situation for them that is a lose-lose situation, looking at the November midterms and the opportunity to lose religious voters who are the base of the party, the opportunity to increase Democratic enthusiasm, which there was already an enthusiasm gap. Donald Trump has played into this, and so he's really positioned Republicans running in November in a bad place.
Democrats have been accused by the White House of being responsible for this whole family separation thing. They're pointing to the law. The law doesn't necessarily state that you have to separate the two. In years past, until this zero tolerance policy was pushed and enforced, these families who would bring in minors were treated civilly in civil situations, not criminally. So therefore, you wouldn't have the need to separate it. So it's a zero tolerance policy that has, in fact, separated this. This is a decision that was made by the White House.
That is true, and I think to blame it all on Democrats is a real stretch. However, the previous status quo, so let's say the president pauses zero tolerance or rescinds it, going back to the previous policy, which was catch and release, where you would come into the country, claim asylum, get released into the country with a court date, and many, many people would never show up for that court date.
Well, that doesn't work.
That's
I mean,
right,
you can't obviously trust illegal immigrants to show up to court if you release them. I mean,
right, so that's a broken system that needs to be addressed, which is why my hope, and I don't agree, obviously, with your characterizations of the Republican bills tomorrow in the House, if the Senate deals with this and then the House as well with a standalone bill, you have to do it in a way that would keep the families together with the resources to do so, but address that catch and release piece, which is an ongoing problem and really needs to be fixed. And Democrats should not say, we're not going to negotiate on legislation. If they get a clean, standalone bill on this, right, then it would be ridiculous to say this is a horrible humanitarian tragedy, but we're not going to legislate on it, even though we are legislators. Someone should get that memo to Chuck Schumer.
Okay. I think he has that memo. I think the other situation we're dealing with is the pushback against that this is a Democratic problem. This is a problem that President Trump created, and there's a difference between an unintended consequence, which was some families being separated under the Obama administration, and a full-on, like, aggressive policy as far as what we've heard from the administration. They wanted this to happen. They wanted this to be a negotiating factor when it comes to the immigration bill. Immigration put Donald Trump into the White House. This may be his Achilles heel that will take him out of the White House.
I believe the president wants a wall. I believe that is where this all starts. started. I don't believe the president entered the White House on the first day of president saying, I'm going to rip babies and toddlers away from their parents. But he is trying to send a message. Obviously, that message has backfired, and he is willing to sign an executive order. You have to give him that and hope that politicians in Washington play catch up now and come up with immigration reform that works for everyone.
I think he has surrounded himself with people like Stephen Miller who have said, I want to strip babies away from their mothers and actually see that as something being positive.
We should see what's in the actual order itself. We don't know what's going to be in it. And maybe some of those measures that are going to be taken, they could have considered those before implementing zero tolerance.
We're going to be getting that any moment. He is planning on attending a Minnesota rally tonight. And before he leaves for Minnesota, he said that he will be signing this. So that should be coming down sometime in the next 20 minutes or so. Thank you both, Guy Benson and Jamo Green. Always great to see you both. Thank you.
Sure thing.